Today we begin our series on cultivating resiliency in children, and we're looking at 5 particular F words that lead us into this place of cultivation. And the first one that we begin with is foundation. Foundation. How we tell the beginning of our stories, especially our faith stories, shapes our sense of safety and love. And I wonder if I can infuse our first faith story as Christians with a little imagination and at the service of our relationship with God. Eve and Adam lived who knows how long in peace and harmony and joy with God before Genesis 3 occurred. God fashioned them in God's own image and God's own likeness. The holy knitter wove creativity and agency and goodness and beauty and truth right into them. The holy knitter knew that, like winter clothes bought in summer, these new human beings would need to grow into their boots of beauty. They would need to grow into the trousers of truth. But God is ever patient and knew that there would be time for growing. They were eternal beings nonetheless. And never one for missing a chance to celebrate. God threw a party complete with gifts. In Genesis 1:29 through 31, the purveyor of goodness and beauty and truth gifted Eve and Adam with handmade works of art in the earth and all that was in it. These earthly gifts pulsed with goodness and beauty and truth of the Creator, and God and God's new friends partied so hard that they had to rest on the 7th day. Well, how about the second telling? The way of generosity in Genesis chapter 2. How about this? The cosmic gardener gets her hands dirty. God sinks hands in the newly created earth and lovingly forms and fashions. And then God breathes her own breath into human lungs, implanting a longing for connection, for intimacy. And that longing is like a beacon, which constantly reminds these new human creations that they were not created to be alone. These humans were created by the Trinitarian community of love. They were created by love's family, and they would forever long for, strive for, seek, and search out this connection. And as Eve and Adam lived with God over the course of time, they grew in love, they grew in trust, they were surrounded and steeped in the way of generosity. We are created with the expectation of generosity. Our Christian scriptures gush with the generosity of God. The Beatitudes are God's proclamation of generosity for all. And the genius behind the first 2 chapters of Genesis, and there are many, is that it chronicles the path every human being takes. We all begin in the generous way. And then due to early wounding and shaken trust, we forget this terrain of generosity. We forget that generosity is our true home. We become disoriented and disillusioned, and all we see is the false way of scarcity. What lovingly began as, "And my God will satisfy every need of yours according to his riches in glory in Christ Jesus," becomes an isolated, up from our bootstraps way of living that is primarily concerned for me and mine. So to begin to cultivate resiliency in our children, we have to help root and steep them in the generous way, in that they belong to love's family. They were born belonging to love's family, and that is the core of their being. Children experience shame and shakenness as the threat of being unloved or of not belonging. How can you be fully present to the children who are with you? How can you help them to know that their belonging cannot be shattered or shaken? A resilient child is one who knows in all the dimensions of their self, in their body, in their mind, in their thoughts, in their feelings, in their social context, which is you, family, that they are loved and that they belong to a community. They belong. One of the things that you might do is go back and look at Genesis, those early chapters right before the fall, and invite your children to draw pictures. What might it have been like for all of that time that passed that we don't really know about living in God's generous way? What does generosity look like as you talk with your children? What is it like to belong to family? Join me next Friday for our next F word.